After 5 years and 2 kids, my boyfriend revealed he cheated on me for a year with men while I was pregnant with our first child. I didn't know how to tell you, he said. Now I'm torn between love and betrayal. Can trust ever be rebuilt after destroying it? This is excessively long, but I need to begin at the start. I female ended a toxic on and off relationship with my ex-female that lasted 5 years. We began dating as high school freshmen and officially broke up 1 year after graduation. I cheated a few times and she cheated a few times. It was just a bad and toxic situation overall. So when we broke up, I felt utterly lost. I was extremely codependent on her since I had given up all my friends to be with her. All except one who was a mutual friend between us. Honestly, he was more her friend, but I think he had a crush on me and his relationship with her was deteriorating. I asked him if he could continue being my friend and he flat out told me no because he liked me a lot and genuinely could not be my friend. This is a short version of his explanation. I was impressed. I had never encountered someone so open and honest. I always perceived him as sincere and mature, which was the complete opposite of my ex. I did not want him to abandon me and I found him attractive, so I suggested we talk, see where this leads, but take it slow. I was just out of a relationship, you know. However, it honestly progressed a bit quickly. We slept together after dating for a month and then moved in together in our third month of dating because the pandemic had just hit and lockdown was happening. We were living with our parents and did not want to be there, so we thought, let's move in together. We faced financial troubles, so I got a job. His mother did not like me, but he stood up for me and made her understand that I was a priority for him and that he would not tolerate her bullying me. Eventually, she came to terms with me and we became a family. I began to struggle significantly with depression. I don't know, I was filled with regret for not attending college and wasting so much of my life on my ex. I had terrible self-esteem and body dysmorphia. Looking back, I should have taken time to work on myself before committing to someone else. Nevertheless, I was trying. It wasn't all bad days every day. This was our first year together, which was turbulent. Then I found out I was pregnant. I was terrified. I immediately thought he would leave me. I thought my life was over. I have always been pro-choice, but when I was in that hospital room and they informed me I had to decide soon, I thought about my little brother whom I witnessed die. I could not live with myself if I willingly gave my baby to God because of my past trauma. My mother was with me at the hospital when I found out, and we discussed how I did not want to terminate, but if I was unable to raise my baby, I would give it to someone who could and wanted to. After that, I spoke with my boyfriend. He quickly told me that he would not dictate what I should do with my body and that he would support me regardless of my decision. He expressed uncertainty about being ready to be a father, but if I had this baby, he would step up and be one, especially since he grew up without a father. He instilled confidence in me that we would navigate this together. I had told him I loved him before, and while I did love him, my feelings transformed after this. They became deeper. Call it hormones or whatever you will, but they did. I suffered from severe morning sickness. I was constantly hungry and tired. I had to quit my job. He was entirely financially supporting me. After finding out I was 4 weeks pregnant, I struggled with depression for the next 2 months. However, I began to emerge from it once I truly accepted that my life was changing and that it was starting to feel like it would change for the better. My attitude began to genuinely change. I felt more in tune with my emotions and empathetic toward others. Communicating with my boyfriend became easier, and I became more emotionally mindful of how my situation was affecting him. I did not pressure him about anything and ensured that during disagreements I remained mature and respectful even if he did not. I was simply falling more in love with him. However, I ignored red flags. We were both marijuana smokers, but I stopped when I discovered I was pregnant and did not feel it would be fair to ask him to quit simply because I had to. He began to smoke heavily and then started drinking regularly, gradually increasing to finishing a full bottle of tequila every other night. At times, I felt as though he was escaping me but told myself he was just doing his own thing. I ignored it. He only drank at night. The marijuana use was pretty constant throughout the day, but I had been like that at one point and did not feel I had a right to say anything or judge. After our baby was born, it began to bother me a bit. I lacked confidence in him being my support, so I had my mother stay with us. He hated it immensely, but I was terrified of being alone. I had all these new responsibilities of caring for an infant, my boyfriend, and finding time to nourish and care for myself. She stayed with us for about 3 weeks before I felt ready to manage on my own. It was difficult to ask my boyfriend for help, but when I did, he was supportive and considerate. At times, I felt like a burden because he could be quite temperamental with me, which I think is why I neglected my own needs while taking care of my baby. However, I loved my baby so much, and I loved him even more for giving me her. He proposed to me 2 weeks after our daughter was born. Naturally, I said yes. I knew I did not want to have a wedding anytime soon, with the baby being so young and our finances tightening due to her arrival. Our relationship felt solid to me. I knew he was the man. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with the man with whom I wanted to create a home and family. By the time my daughter was 8 months old, I realized I wanted another baby. I asked my boyfriend and he agreed to start trying. I knew he thought I was crazy, but he loved our daughter, and I believe he was impressed with how well I adapted to being a mother. In fact, I was impressed with myself, yet at times I struggled to fulfill my role as a girlfriend. Being a mother consumed me. I was entirely focused on my daughter. 1 month after my daughter's first birthday, we discovered we were expecting another baby. I was very happy. I grew up with a younger sibling who was 2 years younger than me, and I wanted my children to have that experience. The second pregnancy was rough on my body, and I felt a lot more stressed, especially since I was raising and still breastfeeding a toddler. My boyfriend also faced his medical challenges during my pregnancy. He had to completely stop drinking and truly focus on his health. He managed to quit drinking, which was a process, and he ultimately required surgery 2 weeks after the birth of our second child. We have grown tremendously together, experiencing both ups and downs, with our biggest struggles being in communication. Yet I have never doubted his loyalty to me and have always felt he was honest to the point of making me feel inadequate. Here is this wonderful man who continues to work hard for me and our children and is so open and honest with me. I had immense pride and admiration for him, but I struggled to express it. My insecurity regarding who I am as a person had a substantial hold on me. I viewed him as too good for me. I would compare myself to him and feel unworthy. I was a good mother, and that was all I believed I had to offer. Therefore, during times when I needed to address problems with him, I would freeze up and shut down, terrified that if I opened up in that moment, he would not want me. It was irrational of me, but insecurities have that effect. We tried to get married before my son was born, but I was always held back by a lack of confidence that he truly wanted me for who I am. I felt that for him, marriage was merely a step, something he needed to do since we had kids and loved each other. Given how I was raised, I have always perceived marriage as a significant commitment, and divorce is very frowned upon. Now let's fast forward. We are still not married. We have a 3-year-old daughter and a 19-month-old son. I am 25, my boyfriend is 27. We lost our home and moved in with my mother. It is challenging, but it is a last resort until we can purchase our own home. My boyfriend admitted to me that he would like to attend church and know God. I grew up Christian, so I have no issues with this. I myself have lost my way with Christ, but I am not opposed to finding my way back. We have turned our hearts to Christ and are committed to growing in faith together. I informed him that I am ready to get married and want to incorporate God into our relationship. He agrees, and I feel even closer to him. One night we were enjoying a casual date together when he mentioned he had 2 things to tell me. The way he became reserved and the nervousness in his tone immediately alerted me that something was wrong. My chest constricted and my stomach began to swirl. My first thought was that he cheated, and my second thought was that I was being foolish for thinking the worst. He would never do that. He then proceeded to explain that before we began dating, he thought he might like men and was experimenting with them. He revealed this to me, and I, who had never realized he had these feelings or urges, was shocked. He continued by saying he felt he could not confide in me about these feelings. He explained that when we got together and our relationship started badly, leading him to believe we would break up, he downloaded an app and met up with a transgender individual and had sex. He liked it and did it again 2 more times. When he wasn't meeting up with them, he was messaging other men sexually and flat out entertaining other men while we were in a relationship. I inquired when this started, and he admitted he met up with the first individual shortly after we discovered I was pregnant with our first child. The cheating continued for a year, but he insisted it was just sex and that he completely disassociated himself from it. As time passed, he became so overwhelmed with guilt that he started drinking regularly. He could not provide a definitive timeline for when it stopped because he felt so disassociated from his actions that it didn't seem like he was the one doing it. He claimed he finally gained control over his desires and was able to stop, relating his shame and fears to childhood trauma. He acknowledged that he never found the right time to tell me, but realized he could not marry me without me knowing the whole truth. He loves me and wants me, but he understands he messed up, and it all feels extremely complicated. I love this man, but he has completely violated my trust. He manipulated me and gaslighted me. I simply do not know what to do or how to feel. He claims it happened 3 years ago. He tells me he is gay, bisexual, or bicurious. I love this man, but is he even the man I love? I never imagined him capable of such actions. I never doubted his loyalty to me. I just cannot grasp how someone could profess love for another, have a child with them, propose, all while cheating. It does not make sense. The utter disregard for me is bewildering, and why don't I want to leave him? Why? I just do not know how to stay and be genuinely happy again. Sometimes I wish I could simply forget. I found out 3 weeks ago. During the first week we discussed it extensively, which helped somewhat, but the pain is still so raw, it becomes easier to conceal when he is around. We still live together, but he sleeps in a separate room. I have been intimate with him since discovering the truth. It confuses him that I want to be intimate so soon, but the messed up part of me needs to feel desired. I crave that feeling even though sex does not sustain a relationship. He has asked me to peg him. I am not opposed to his desire, but it is hard knowing he essentially said, "Forget this woman, she cannot give me what I want, so I will seek out a man to fulfill that need." Maybe it is not about the sensation. Perhaps he genuinely wanted a man. I do not know, but I feel offended. My self-esteem is wounded. My perception of him is now so distorted. I see him as weak and insecure, especially when I reflect on how he hurt me. Yet I never viewed him that way. Even when he clearly had insecurities about his body image, I would always feel love and pride for him for being able to show me and share his body despite those insecurities. I simply want the anger and hurt to dissipate. I do not know how to process this. I love him, but I do not know how to forgive him. Story 2. My 22M boyfriend says I'm immature for prioritizing my studies over constant updates. After I washed my hair late at night despite his warning, he went cold and said, "You can't even do simple things." Am I being insensitive, or is this relationship doomed? For context, I am a 20-year-old female who has been with my boyfriend, a 22-year-old male, for about 10 months. He is not the type of person I would have expected to date due to his extremely outgoing and extroverted personality. I am unsure how to elaborate further, so I will begin here. Essentially, we have been experiencing arguments as a typical couple might. The problem is that our conflicts usually stem from him being upset about something I do, and it is often the small things. I am not suggesting that these minor details do not matter, as I recognize that they do. I understand that even though they may not hold significant meaning for me, they may mean a great deal to him, and I am not dismissing that. I realize that he becomes upset over things, but it is his reaction that truly bothers me. For instance, he wants me to update him nearly every hour, not necessarily because he has requested it, but because I want to. There have been several occasions when this has been challenging because I was studying and too focused to text him for a few hours. Or I was in school and went to lunch with friends without informing him, which made him very angry. I somewhat understand his point of view. I would also want updates from him. However, I have told him that sometimes I forget to do so or prefer to focus on my work without using my phone. Whenever I attempt to explain my perspective to him, hoping to help him understand why I act the way I do, he interprets it as me continuously arguing back. He claims that I never validate him and that my responses only serve to invalidate him, as if I am merely trying to argue my point and win the discussion. This leads to moments where he becomes incredibly frustrated and angry, resulting in him shouting at me and saying he needs space. Almost all of our disputes arise from minor things that he desires, which I do not fulfill. For example, if it is late at night, he does not want me to wash my hair because it will be wet and it takes time to dry. At times, I can comply with his request, but there are also instances when my hair feels greasy and I dislike going to bed with dirty hair. Therefore, I do not adhere to his wishes and do the opposite of what I was instructed. He then becomes silent and very cold toward me. When I attempt to ask him what is wrong, he eventually tells me that it is because I never listen. This frustrates me immensely because I question why I must always listen to him. I find it unreasonable. While I understand his concern, it is my hair. I know he cares about my well-being and does not want me to go to bed with wet hair, but I think it is irrational for him to become upset over such issues. If I were in his position and felt upset, I would appreciate some comfort from him, allowing him to explain why he wants to do things a certain way at that moment, and I would be fine. However, when I try to explain anything, he interprets it as me completely invalidating him and only caring about my own desires. He perceives me as selfish and entitled. I become so frustrated because I do not know how to handle it. Lately, I have simply acquiesced to his requests. Of course, this is sometimes challenging for me because I am human with my own thoughts. I cannot possibly do everything his way. I feel upset because even when I do not argue and merely apologize, he still points out simple things I cannot do, particularly regarding the updates. He does not answer my calls, and when he does, he claims he does not decline them, despite the fact that it is evident he has ignored my previous calls. It is not as if I intended for that to happen, you know. I understand if he feels upset. I might feel upset too if he went out without informing me or did not fulfill requests I had explicitly communicated. However, if he had apologized and comforted me, I would have been fine. The fact is that I apologized immediately and told him I was sorry, called him as well, but all I received were cold responses. I even mentioned that I brought back half of the untouched lunch for him, only to be met with, "It's fine, you can have it, I'll just get my own," all delivered in a very flat tone. I do not expect him to be overly affectionate and sweet after I apologize, but at least I hope for a degree of kindness. One can be upset yet still maintain a level of niceness, such as saying, "It's okay, thanks, but I think I will just get my own, I'm still upset." Do you see the difference? It is stark. I cannot determine if I am overreacting. I dislike how he behaves like a princess when circumstances do not align with his wishes, as if I must always be perfect and fulfill every one of his expectations. I am not suggesting that what he asks of me is difficult, but I simply need a break sometimes, you know. I would not even treat him that way. The reality is that I still love him very much. It just seems that during our arguments, he never truly intends to reconcile. He often says whatever comes to mind, hurtful or not, and when I ask him not to say hurtful things, he claims they are merely facts, stating that I should grow up if I cannot accept the truth and learn from my errors. It is disheartening that your significant other speaks to you in such a manner. I do try to reflect on my own actions, and I will admit that he has pointed out these things a few times. However, it feels tough because I cannot be perfect all the time. I just want him to understand sometimes. Hearing him consistently utter such harsh words is genuinely painful. It makes me contemplate leaving the relationship, thinking about how he will speak to me in the future when we are married. When I reflect on the good times, I try to ignore the bad times. I keep telling myself that what he says is an accurate reflection. I am immature, and perhaps I should just listen and stop arguing. Yet I genuinely feel that he lacks understanding and can be quite harsh. It is disappointing. In summary, I dislike the way my boyfriend reacts to very minor arguments, but I am unsure if I am simply being petty or not sensitive to his feelings. I would appreciate any feedback.